Well, hey, Southern Oregon, welcome to the Real Estate Show. I'm Alice Lema. I'm a broker here in beautiful Southern Oregon with John L. Scott Real Estate. I'm your host of the Real Estate Show. And today we're going to be interviewing Mr. Joe Bratt, who was one of the original hosts of the show. He is the operations manager of Rogue Valley TV. They do all the audio video for the public hearings, the conversations that our municipalities and counties have with their commissioners and such. For Medford, Josephine County, Jackson County, Ashland sometimes. And so because he's kind of in the room and he has a real estate background, he comes on the show every so often and gives us a peek as to what it was like to be around all those conversations, because there's some interesting things coming down the pike. It's always fun to have Joe Bratt on the show. Before we get to that, let's talk briefly about what happened in our Southern Oregon housing market this week. If you remember, last week we had a spike in number of listings compared to this time last year. So checking again this year compared to this week last year, we have a 63% increase in number of listings in Jackson County. This time last year, we had 549 active listings. This year, we have 896 for a 63% increase in Jackson County listings. Our closings have gone down. In Jackson County this time last year, we had 94 closings. This year, we had 77. So we're doing week to week. So we had 77 closings in Jackson County this year, compared to 94 closings this time last year. So that's an 18% drop. So interesting, the number of listings have gone up, the number of closings have gone down. Let's look at Josephine County, our sister county. Josephine County has a 57% increase in the number of listings. This time last year, Josephine County had 247 listings active. This year, we have 389. That's a 57% increase in number of listings. Closings in Josephine County are down this week compared to this time last year. They're down 37%. We had 40 closings in Josephine County this time last year. This year, we had 25 for a 37% decline. So number of listings going up, number of sales going down, but there's still a little bit of an edge to the sellers. We still have a few more buyers out there, can you believe it, than sellers. So it's not a bad time. And we will be talking to Joe Bratt of Rogue Valley TV. So stay tuned for that. We'll be right back. Well, hello, Southern Oregon, and welcome back to the Real Estate Show. I'm Alice Lema. I'm a broker here in beautiful Southern Oregon with John L. Scott Real Estate. And today we're so excited to welcome back Joe Bratt. Hi, Joe.
Hello, Alice. Good to be back. Good to see you.
Thank you. So Joe is one of the original hosts of the Real Estate Show. I'm actually the second or third string here. But Joe is still actively part of Rogue Valley TV. In fact, he's the operations manager, and he goes to all the planning meetings for City of Medford. And boy, there's been a lot of stuff happening in the news with what's going on in Medford. So welcome back to the show, Joe.
Thank you, Alice. It's actually, having had a real estate license for 10 years through 2017, those planning commission meetings, as soon as I was involved in real estate, doing transactions, sniffing around for new developments and things like that were coming down the line, they've been so much more interesting than just so much as going to them and being a part of my job. So
I bet.
I always try to keep my ears kind of perked, and it has been a busy time. I sit in on Jackson County land use meetings and land use hearings, and
very cool.
Land use zoning things for the county as well with their planning commission. And then the Jackson County Board of Commissioners, I'm at their meetings every Wednesday morning, their televised weekly meeting. And the Medford City Council and the Medford Planning Commission, I see and hear a lot of. Grants Pass is one of our partners, and I see some of their meetings and get a little taste of what's going on up there. But definitely Medford is the hotbed locally, and just our region is in such an interesting housing situation, not just the market end of things. You wake up and tear into every day, or they tear into you, or how it might work out. The whole regional recovery from the fires and the need for housing that was already in place before we lost the units that we did in the Alameda fire. So there's been a lot of efforts underway to solve that problem, that were some that were in the works. I think, the cities and the counties, the regional problem solving process that took place to decide which of the city's urban growth boundaries would be accepted and brought into the plan. That was a 12-year, 14-year march, and it's still going on. I'll tell you a little bit about that. Phoenix was the latest one that went before the county and had their UGB plan approved at the county level, and will go to the State Land Use Board of Appeals for final approval up there. But Oregon is just an incredibly complex land use law state, one of the more complex ones in the nation. So
this is when land use planners graduate from college, I always get this phone call. I want to move to Oregon because you have the most laws. I always thought they were kidding, but it's kind of true.
It really is. And they are pretty complex. And now there are some new laws at the state level that are impacting our local planning abilities to regulate, where things go and how things work. So
we've got
that's always an interesting trade-off.
A lot of ground to cover. Can we just touch briefly on the fire? Let's kind of wrap up, maybe up down what's going on with the fire.
I think most of that, there's been some really good efforts. Cities of Phoenix and Talent, I think, have stepped up their games in their planning departments, and they've worked really hard to get permits and processes going and get them through to get homes rebuilt or replace the ones that were going to be or could be, or if the owners had the wherewithal to do so. And I think other uses are being looked at, but that is such, you just can't take a loss like that in region wide like we did, and easily recover from it. So I think there's been some pretty good efforts, especially in those localized efforts in Phoenix and Talent, just to be able to move things along. And I know I still read and hear in the local news that there's still folks in FEMA trailers, and there's still some things that are moving through the process. But all in all, we were dealt such a blow there that many of the tidbits that I've heard when we talk about Alameda recovery in the meetings have been of the long-term 10 to 15 year.
Oh, wow.
Range.
Well, you know what? That would make sense.
Truly take us to recover, and for all of those units to be coming back into play, and at a time when we really need them there. So that few hours just ravaged our community for decades to come, literally.
Yeah, but there's been a lot of good that's come out of that. The laws changed. No camping in the greenway during the summer. All of that helps. And then I guess, as you said, some of our municipalities and other governments are working together in a more team-like fashion, and that just helps everybody. Yep.
And from a real estate standpoint, it's got to be hard to find, the range of homes that we lost, the cost and the range and the affordability of those homes. I know that's developers and a bit about that game, and that's a really, those are really hard units to replace unless people have the wherewithal to do it on their own and with their insurance and things like that. So we're going to struggle with that and work towards that, but hopefully some of the intended consequences of some of the state legislation that has been approved and has actually come into effect July of this year, it's intended to loosen up a little bit of where you can create duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes.
Oh, let's talk about that.
Not the big apartment buildings or things like that, but those are. And I'm wondering if our board of realtors have had much input or have had much to say about Senate Bill 8 and Senate Bill 458 are the two that have probably been talked about the most, and they are statewide measures that are intended to maybe override local control. So insofar as where you could build duplex, triplex, and quadplex, the middle housing.
So this is the law that got passed a few years ago
Yeah,
by executive order,
Yes.
not being political, just being matter of fact.
Mhm, mhm.
And it allowed in the state of Oregon up to 4 dwellings per tax lot without subdividing.
Right.
If
right.
the municipalities could set their own rules was kind of the idea.
Right, and also the ownership could be split on those, on the lots, and some of those developments could be, it didn't have to be under the ownership of a single owner to have.
So up to 4 houses, not splitting the lot in each little dwelling can be sold separately.
No, and I think that might even be a different,
Well, I'll let you talk because you were at the
no,
meeting.
and
I'm
I'm
just
not,
asking the question, and I'm getting excited here. I'm like, oh my gosh, we could sell them separately.
yeah,
I'll be quiet. You talk.
that's more Senate Bill 458.
458. Okay.
That was where local governments must approve divisions of real property for new middle housing developments on lots and parcels, and in residential zones in cities with certain populations. So 458 would establish utilities and land use requirements for applications for middle housing land division. And it also additional conditions cities and counties may require during the middle house land division approval plan. But there's also Senate Bill 8 that has just come into play. And that was the one that was put forward and championed by Senate President Peter Courtney. And let me tell you, Alice, my experience, even being in the news media since the 1980s in Oregon and in a newsroom for a lot of those years off and on, and I can't make heads or tails or sense of the multitude of legislation that comes out of Salem, Oregon. They, for years, have been trying to tack on real estate sales transfer taxes and things like that I know the Association of Realtors has had to fight tooth and nail and constantly try to fend them off from making home transactions more or less affordable, more expensive. And so, there is, as I read through it, even as I read news reports and multiple news reports on it, it's hard to make sense of it all, but they're trying to encourage and speed up the building of more housing. And it's and our local, not of our local folks are really in favor of this. JPR, Jefferson Public Radio, had a great article on Senate Bill 8, where State Senator Pam Marsh, who is a proponent of these changes, talking about the things that it can do and might do. And Matt Brinkley, the planning director for the city of Medford, says it's hard for municipalities like his to prevent them from requiring zoning changes. So if you're going to override those local zoning regulations and rules that are in place, he would think that process that Medford uses to evaluate whether there's sufficient infrastructure for development could be compromised. So they feel like their comprehensive plan for the city of Medford has these considerations in place and will take care of those issues as they come forward. But these state legislative issues, the state edicts that come down, could override that in certain zoning areas, commercial zoning areas. And it also tries to, these two bills in their ways, try to identify and maybe repurpose lands that are zoned more for commercial development, but might be able to meld into neighborhoods or accommodate some of these middle housing needs. And the concept of, more housing units accommodating more people per lot, and the ownership that you could share amongst that, as opposed to laws that were currently in place, I believe. It seems to be some advantages there, but your local planners will tell you that those are the folks that I talk to, get a chance to hear from as they report to their planning commissions and to their planners. They are in a wait and see position. We've not seen any planning actions come forward in Medford anyway that are trying to take advantage of this or move this forward. And I also go to Medford Site Planning Commission, Architecture Commission meetings, which is kind of a preliminary vetting process for preliminary plans for developments. And I know at least one or two of the commissioners on there are not real happy about these state laws that are trying to get in the way of what they've been working on and trying to do the best for Medford.
What is their kind of general objection?
Just the fact that the state would dictate to you that this must take place and that you have no recourse as a local municipality to say, no, Mr. or Mrs. State, this would not be a good idea in this location, even though from your 10,000-foot view in the Lema Valley, it seems like it would be. That don't fly here. There might be some considerations with traffic, sewage, the utility tie-ins, all of those types of things that have to serve all those multiple units don't just pop into place. So there are going to be some incredibly inhibiting expenses possibly to develop those and to put housing units in places where they weren't originally zoned or planned for.
And we're predominantly an agricultural area. People keep forgetting that the vibe down here in Southern Oregon is not like that of Portland or Salem.
No,
and they're not allowing for that in this legislation. I think
we are eating up the most fertile farmland all around us in Southern Oregon that marijuana and hemp growers haven't already overtaken. Or there is some real trade-offs there. And Alice, that's part of those land use laws that are so diverse in the state of Oregon, because we deal with mountains, valleys, the valley floor, farmland, exclusive forest use land, all of that just in Jackson County.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. We're talking to Joe Brett, Operations Manager of Rogue Valley TV. Take a quick break, talk to our sponsors, and we'll be right back with more information. Don't go away. Well, welcome back to the Real Estate Show, everybody. We're talking to Joe Brett today, Operations Manager, Rogue Valley TV. He is in all of these meetings locally, Jackson County, many of the commissions, and also City of Medford and Josephine County. So he is our reporter, and he's coming back every so often to kind of bring us up to speed about what's been going on, because there has been so much going on. Even without the fires, there was a lot going on.
There really has been. And actually, I should say I sit in a small closet surrounded by electronic equipment. I'm not actually in the meetings, but I'm at the meetings.
You're at the meeting, you're listening, you're watching.
Hiding in the back.
Virtual is the new being there.
Pointing the cameras at people. You know, if you're going on a little too long, you might lose me.
Yeah.
But no, it's interesting process just to watch that happen, especially with the real estate background. And also, aside from RVTV and my duties there, I, as you know, Alice, own and operate Table Rock Sports, and John L. Scott Real Estate is a partner of ours, and a big part of how all of that happens. So shout out to the John L. Scott scoreboard and all of that.
Yeah, they're one of our sponsors of the show too. Yeah, they're very
good friends there. And that's where I ended my real estate career, was at the very top of the heap in the Rogue Valley with the agency that had just come together in incredible fashion. And so again, that just kind of propelled me when I sat through my meeting duty, just much more interesting. And as I mentioned early in our first little intro, we had a regional problem solving process, the RPS process, they call it. What it was the collective urban growth boundaries of all of the cities in Jackson County, except for Jacksonville, who that was the one city that passed and did their own thing. Right? They had a whole different path that they went, but everyone else went through Jackson County as they would do their work and do their preparation, then they would present it to the county, and the county could vet it to make sure that it was going to pass muster with the state land use laws. And we have incredibly powerful state land use groups like the Thousand Friends of Oregon in Oregon that are like land use watchdogs, and they watch really closely with really good intent insofar as how our land use laws are structured. Watch really closely that you don't encroach too much on farmlands and critical use lands and areas like that, these land use plans. So it comes through the county so that all of those considerations can be brought together. Those organizations and the state land use people get a chance to preview, look at it, give some input. Sometimes you'll get some feedback on the plans, but that process is still in the process of kind of wrapping up, but the whole regional problem solving process of about 12 years came together. And Medford, just about a year ago, maybe 14 months, 18 months, their plan was approved, went through the county for final approval. They had done an incredible amount of work. I sat through council sessions, 3.5, 4 hours long, when they plotted out the urban growth boundary zones that were going to be brought in. And there was a finite amount of acreage up for grabs in all of these, and it was MD1 through MD10, I think, were the different zones around Medford that would grow, where the growth would take place. And in each of those zones, they're planning for schools, light industry, maybe commercial and residential.
Oh, wow.
And where are the lands? Where were the available lands? Where's the infrastructure currently in place to grow out into those? It's a huge process. So Medford, a little over a year ago, had finished all of that work. And there was a huge amount of kind of shuffling in the council. Ultimately, the city council, after it's vetted through the planning commission, and goes through all the process, and the county even weighs in. It's the city council that finally has to say yay or nay to put it forward, and they were able to move forward. And the trade-offs as they worked with developers and everybody like that was an incredible process. There were precious few acres that stayed, and some really precious desired acres that didn't get in through the course of the process. So that was eye-opening to me, that it would take that much work. But again, you're planning for the next 40 years, 50 years growth for your area. And again, the tricky little trade-offs we have with the mountains and the valley and the rivers and the creeks and all of those things that play into land use planning made it really interesting. So Medford's good. And Phoenix was just the most recent city, and they were doing some, they're doing that planning to recover from the Alameda fire, but the RPS process, the planning process, had been in place and been in the works for those many years before. So Phoenix had some really interesting trade-offs that they worked through. One is that they've got some area on North Phoenix Road that goes back towards Medford that has been identified for a long time as a really good area for an industrial park or a large training center, industrial employment training center, that type of thing, or maybe a number of industries that might play into that. So Phoenix got part of it, and I think Medford has the other part of it. It comes right up to Medford's urban growth boundary extension, but that area was improved for Phoenix only because it was worked through as a regional need, that the entire region would benefit from this area between Phoenix and Medford, kind of just north of Home Depot there, I guess it would be, that open area there between there and Centennial. So that will be an area that the entire region may benefit from.
So that's pretty flat. That's hayfields right now, mostly.
Some kind of just open. So some acreage.
So they're thinking like a light industrial park.
And it doesn't seem to be farmed or used very heavily there. So I think that's one of the exceptions, is that's pretty close to floor of the valley farmland and things like that. So you're kind of walking those little tight ropes, and they get narrow channels through there. But that area is going to benefit the entire region. And I think this city of Phoenix, of course, by having that area in their UGB, they'll have some tax benefit and things like that. They would probably get from that. They also did some nice shifting of some industrial area that should stay that way, and some acreage that could more suit residential uses. They made better use of the lands, and they got some exceptions to keep some things in place and to move some things over here that would just overall fit the better structure. And the key to that was the traffic infrastructure. Again, the sewer is always a big part of it too, but just the traffic and things that would have to be implemented to accommodate some of the hillside across the freeway development. Not maybe as high a priority, and not a realistic priority, because of the development costs of the developer having to put in the roads to go a long ways, not just the streets you're going to build your houses on, but kind of have to build the ingress and egress out to accommodate the traffic needs. And traffic studies are also always
fascinating, aren't they?
Always a fun part of especially the commercial developments. Around the Northgate Center. Northgate Center is going to expand some more. There's some new businesses coming to light in there, and I think there's a whole new expansion in the works, maybe, of the Northgate Center there. So they've got more room, and they're going to fill up some of it, it sounds like.
So what's so interesting about that is it appears that there's a general optimism for business growth in our valley, and we're not particularly economically friendly just as a state. And again, not being political, as a matter of fact, the taxes are high, it's hard to get stuff done, but we love Oregon, we don't want to live anywhere else. But at the same time, I'm surprised that they think there's going to be that much growth in the business sector, because
And I'm
they're
not,
allowing for a lot more commercial buildings then.
yeah, it surprises me the number of just chains that we see popping up, and new additions that are, new restaurants that are coming to the Medford Road Valley area.
Well, and thank goodness, because we lost a bunch
We did.
during the shutdown.
Yeah. So yeah, it's I'm shocked Medford has grown as much as it has since 1984, since I moved here.
Oh yeah,
twice
and
the size. Yeah, there are places that you drive through Medford now that you would have walked through hillsides and grass up to your ankles. And
that's what the locals, the people that have lived here forever, say. Like those, like Northgate. It's like nobody thought anything was ever going to happen out there. And now it's the middle of town. It's
the
so
big
funny.
grassland out there by the mills and the railroad tracks. But
right. Who wants to live that far away?
Yeah.
So, but you mentioned earlier some of the pockets in Medford that we're going to be expanding. Do you remember what some of those little areas are? We can let our listeners know where there might be some
I think MD1 and 2 and 3 are up like in the Delta waters, above Delta waters.
Oh, okay. Hayden Homes is building out there right now.
Yes, Hayden's is going crazy out there, and Highway 62. So that's got to be like the MD1, 2.
Oh, they're going to bring it like up to Highway 62, fill that in kind of.
I'm not sure, but there's areas set aside there that would be probably, yes.
And that's for houses. That's kind of that direction.
There, and all of these MDU units 1 through 10. There is, I believe, in 1, 2, or 3, and one of those up there in that area, Coker Butte, Delta Waters area, over the foothills, over the foothills, right around there. And then I think 4 and 5 are more towards the east side of Medford and accommodating some of the east side growth there. But there's also in those ones around Coker Butte, there's land that's platted for school, and looking so far ahead as to where a school would connect in and how it would fit with the residential development, things like that.
So they're planning on population growth.
Yeah, there's a lot of parks.
Schools.
There's a lot of parks and open space that are built into these MDU plans that are going to be part of it. And part of that is to accommodate the land use laws that require some of those things. But and each one is unique in and of itself, just with the topography and the area that it's in and it connects to and things like that. But I will say that we've seen a real uptick in our Medford Planning Commission meetings, a little bit in the county as well. I've seen a few county developments, residential developments that are being planned and coming together in the county. But the city of Medford, we've had a couple of pretty lengthy agendas. Gosh, we had 8 items on the agenda, and one of them we spent long. Yeah, one of them we spent one item we spent 3 hours on.
Wow.
Which is the COGAP is trying to work on the other side of Garfield from the golf course there, and they're also working on their development where the old driving range used to be, those beautiful new multi-unit complexes they've got there, Stewart Village, I think they call it.
Right. Yes.
Right. Yes. So they have got some, they're hung up on a little issue that they talked with the Planning Commission for about 3 hours about last month. And that's still in the works about the road block lengths and the regulations that are tied to it. So Alice, if you can imagine.
What does that mean, the roadblock?
I don't know. So I sat through 3 hours of it, and I was trying desperately to understand. And it got really technical into road engineering and things like that. And that's a couple hours of that. It's hard to keep up, but that can tell you just how one item, and that was part of a pretty large plan, but there was still some work to do on that, and they're still going to have to come back and kind of hash that one out a little more. But there have been a lot. I'll tell you after the break that there have been a lot more applications for subdivisions coming through, and they seem to
instead of multifamily
into these MDU units. The new UGB areas that have come on board are now in the development phase and the planning phase.
Yeah, I know we need more housing, and multifamily solves a lot of that, but predominantly folks want their own digs. They want a yard. So
That's
we'll
what
be
they
right
want.
back with Joe Brett, the operations manager, Rogue Valley TV, and used to, newsman extraordinaire. We'll be right back after word from our sponsors. Well, hey, everybody. Alice Lema here, broker John L. Scott, back at the real estate show, talking to Joe Brett. He's the operations manager of Rogue Valley TV, but he's also anchor man. He's got a news background. He's got a real estate background. He worked for John L. Scott for years, and he was the host of this show for a long time. So we have Joe back every so often because he is watching and listening to a lot of the commission meetings, county hearings, city of Medford and Josephine County stuff. And so we were talking a little bit about the different little spots in the Medford area that might be added in the urban growth development boundaries recently been changed. So you had a couple of other things you wanted to add on to that thought, Joe.
Just that, and I'm sorry, I fell into whining about the length of that one item that we hashed through at the planning commission meeting. There were 7 other items on the agenda that night, and several now each meeting. Some will get pushed back for a couple of weeks as they continue to work on it, but we're having 2 or 3 new subdivision developments, it seems like, come through every 2 weeks when we have our new round of planning commission meetings in Medford. So it seems to be a kind of a robust, no dirt is turning yet on any of those. No sticks are going up, Alice. I know that's when you're going to be more excited when the framing starts to go up.
Yeah, so they're starting to plan on building more homes. That's incredible.
And some of those, not all, but some of those are in the new UGB expanded boundaries. And we've also got some pretty good activity that's going on pretty close to my home. I'm over just south of Columbus on Aspen Street. I've lived here for over 20 years, and there's a lot of activity now. The Garfield, Kings Highway.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There's a huge amount of development that has been in the works for quite a while. The property's been acquired, and they're going up in phases. But I've seen the phase work now for. It slowed a little during the pandemic, but they were up and actually building, and they were doing a lot of that infrastructure work right as we came up to the pandemic. It tailed off a little bit, but I see the construction over there all the time driving.
Oh, that's so exciting.
It is, and those are going to be, and it's hard to say what is an affordable home, what for a first-time home buyer, especially, or a young guy. I mean, that's got to be a hard question for you to answer when you talk to some people these days, because it's shocking to me what these new homes are going to cost. It's shocking to me what the value in my 1976 built home has come to in the last year and a half or so. So, boy,
that was the first quote unquote inflationary sign. was housing. We were all so excited. It never occurred to us that it was gonna keep going into all the other economic sectors.
Yeah. And it's just so they're going to build them, and it's.
So are they building houses, condos?
Yes, yeah.
Townhouses?
I don't know the specifics, but I am seeing plans. I did just see one at planning last week where we had some single family, but there was also in the development, I think, some duplexes and maybe tris.
So they're doing mixed.
There's a little bit of a mix. Yeah. I've seen some that are going to be mixed, some 10 to 20 acre lots in development where they might be able to accommodate single family and some more plentiful, units in the same area there too. And
that little subdivision on the Cedar Link golf course. Well, there's several on the Cedar Link golf course. The cottages at Cedar Landing, John Clausen. So he did the single family, and there's less than 30 little single story houses. And then they have an apartment complex and a townhouse complex, and they've got a little retail coffee shop. So it's very much like what you were talking about. I wonder if that's the new idea that Oregon has.
I haven't seen that.
These little almost bubble-like communities
enclaves,
where they're self-contained.
Where they're trying to keep people from taking and making more trips further out and about from where they live. And downtown Medford, there is a lot of effort, to make downtown Medford more livable. And my gosh, if you'd asked me 10 years ago, I'd have thought, yeah, it's a great idea. But
I know, street by street, the people are gussing
yeah,
up their homes. The youngers are moving in. You see a lot of
Yep.
baby strollers. The elders are downsizing, and they're able to walk, to some of the stuff downtown. It's exciting, but it's definitely street by street.
Downtown Medford has potential. I look at Stewart Village because it's right across the street from a golf course. I'm starting to look, I'm starting to think, hey, when am I going to, I'm not taking care of this place.
Are
Where
you thinking about
downsizing? Where might I land in Medford? And by gosh, 15 or 20 years, downtown Medford might be a viable option down there. There's going to be more housing and living opportunities built in down there. There was a really cool project that didn't quite get through the planning process. Alan Sandler and Mark McKechnie were the developers on it, where they were going to be across from the library, and they were going to build a multi-use complex, mostly housing, and it was going to be 1 story up. It would start, so there would still be the open parking spaces underneath there, and the tightness of the parking requirement.
Oh yeah,
they couldn't make it pencil for enough units, and they couldn't get enough parking spaces. But that was like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when that could be serving Medford residents.
That would have helped a lot.
God, it was a great plan. It was kind of like it seemed like kind of a Jetsons type of thing, where the building was up off the ground, and but it seemed really cool. And who knows, that opportunity may or may not come back. But I thought that's the kind of thing that if they really want to make it livable downtown, that's the kind of thing they'll have to have, and everything that you would want or need in walking or biking distance or short walk, right there. That's really going to turn the tide. And there's some great new little businesses downtown that are helping turn the tide as well. So,
when I think Ashland does a really good job of that, some of their new construction downtown, it looks like it's been there forever. It has the retail on the bottom, and they've got these beautiful townhouses or condos on the top with views and balcony, and you can walk or bike to everywhere. So I was kind of surprised to hear that one in Medford didn't fly, but parking. If you can figure out parking in Ashland, why can't you figure out Medford?
Yeah, it was a few basis difference, and they just couldn't get it done. But Tom Humphrey was the city planner out in Central Point. Central Point has done a beautiful job of that too, in revitalizing their downtown.
They did,
commercial and then the residential on top, and they were real. I remember talking to him. Gosh, he came down and did some shows at RVTV 20 years ago, where they were that far out in front of that concept and really on the edge there, and they made some beautiful improvements in Twin Creeks and the great place. Central Point has done really, really well. They managed and provided for their citizens and a bunch more beyond their own.
And they still are. They're still building.
And still are continuing to do so, and keeping it in a really kind of a hometown feel.
They've done a good job of that.
Really nice job. Interesting.
So in the minute we have left, can we talk briefly about Josephine County?
Yeah. Grants Pass City Council has not had as much, and we don't do their planning commission meetings, darn it. So I don't get to snoop in as much on Josephine County, but I do know they have worked and been briefed on some of these state legislative things that they're going to have to possibly just be aware of, or we're going to have some developments come. They're going to try to take advantage of that. So,
well, we'll have to reach out to them. Joe,
I could give you some juicy tidbits from the ground, but they don't relate to housing or the real estate show.
Well, it's just such a joy to have you back. It's so good to see you. Joe Brett, Operations Manager, Rogue Valley TV, formerly real estate agent at John L. Scott, anchorman, newsman extraordinaire, and he checks up on all the goings on in our community. We'll have you back again. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Al. It's always good to talk with you.
Have a beautiful weekend, folks. See you next time. Bye now.